Hello people, we're going to look at another video on critical reasoning here, another small passage, you know the drill. You can pause the video here and here read it. This is question number 1, this is question number 2, this is question number 3. Ideally, this is one of the easier passages. I picked it up in order to discuss assumptions and inference a little more detail. We've already done a little bit of that, so I hope you can use that information. It's easier passage and easier question, so probably should not take you more than say around 8 minutes in total reading and solving the questions. Anything more than 8 minutes means you're taking too much. 6 minutes is ideally what the 99 percentile should aim to take. In CAT, if you're looking at that, GMAT again, on an average, reading and solving those 3 questions with short options should not take you more than 6 minutes all in total. Okay, that's what you're looking for. 6 is a very good time, reading and solving it, but 8 probably if you're lenient towards yourself. Anyway, let's look at the text starters. In a sense, it's difficult to answer to the injunction, is it better to know or to seek to know? So this is the disjunction. Okay, is it like saying or whatever, like a question being proposed? Okay, is it better to know or to seek to know? So if you notice the difference between the two parts, okay, knowing versus the seeking, the process of knowing. So in asking the question itself, the author is laying out some interesting information for you. The information being that the journey and the destination are not the same thing. That's what the author is indirectly telling you, isn't it? Is it better to know, which is the destination, or to seek to know, which is a journey? Because there is not quite enough information, and the author says we cannot decide. In respect to knowing, the first half of the disjunction, we also want to hear how that knowledge came about. So the author is saying it's important for us, it's not as important for us to have knowledge, it's important for us to know how. That is, was the knowledge acquired despite the disinterest and laziness of the possessor, or was it acquired through diligent seeking? Now, the author wants to get this information to decide which is better, okay? But I also want you to observe a very small piece of information here. Asking the question, was the knowledge acquired despite the disinterest and laziness of the possessor? The author is indirectly conveying the information to you that it's possible to acquire knowledge without showing interest. That information is hidden there. Okay, it's like you're staying with your housemates, let's say, right? And you have I don't know, chicken biryani in your fridge, and you have a vegetarian housemate and non-vegetarian housemate, and the biryani is missing. You don't ask your vegetarian housemate, did you eat it, because you know he's vegetarian, right? So I mean, one of the day-to-day critical reasoning applications, the way we talk to our housemates, I mean, keeping all other conventional etiquette aside, I don't want to discuss that part here. It would get complicated in terms of what questions should ask whom, whether you should ask a vegetarian these questions, whether you ask a non-vegetarian these questions, judging and all that. Not get into that some other day. But point is that in day-to-day, we apply this critical reasoning to a great extent, okay, and we all are good at it, and we make these very quick calculations, almost without our knowledge. It's called system 1. If you are into behavioral economics and all that, some wonderful research has been done into all this. There are processes that you're already prepared to calculate. Anyway, the point is that you ask certain questions because there's certain other piece of information implied, right? Same logic here. So the author is asking, was the knowledge acquired despite the disinterest and laziness of the possessor? The extra information is that knowledge can be acquired that way, which means it's not mandatory for someone with knowledge to have tried to acquire that knowledge. Someone could have acquired the knowledge accidentally also, according to the author here. Okay, that part I want you to understand. See, this comma or is basically break of information. Okay, so there are two different ideas. Was the knowledge acquired despite the disinterest and laziness of the possessor? Sorry. Stop here, take a deep breath, understand the information, then move on to the next part. Was it acquired through diligent seeking? Second part. Okay, it's important for you to know where to break in a sentence. You don't want to read more than 10 to 12 words at one stretch, because that becomes too much for your RAM. It's important that you read a subject, look for its verb, put the clause together, understand the idea. It doesn't matter how long the sentence is. Anyway, if the latter, if the knowledge is acquired through diligent seeking, then it is better to know, since the second half of the disjunction is also accommodated in the first, the possession of knowledge and the attitude of seeking it. We can build on the idea with another example. Anyway, at this point, I want you to stop again and understand what the author is trying to say. The author did not say here that knowledge is not useful if you did not really try to achieve, seek it and just got it. Author is not saying that. I was saying I don't have information about that. But when the knowledge was acquired by a person who was trying to seek that knowledge, that situation is always better than just the seeking part, obviously, right? Simple common sense. You have on one side knowledge plus seeking, on the other side you have only seeking. Obviously knowledge plus seeking is better than just seeking, because you also have knowledge. So in that case we have the information. So that's why we need to know, according to the author, and that's why the author says, right, we need to know how the knowledge was acquired. So in the situation where we do not know how the knowledge was acquired, we can't really decide whether it's better to know or to seek. No, we can't answer that question. We can answer that question only when we know how that knowledge was acquired. And even in that case, we know that it is better to know only in that scenario where someone tried to acquire knowledge and got the knowledge. Okay. Second paragraph. Would you rather have a fish or know how to fish? Okay, same logic is again, isn't it? It's better to know, seek to know. You want to know how to fish or you want the fish? Again, we need some more information. If having the fish is the result of knowing how to fish, then once more, the two halves of the disjunction are not necessarily mutually exclusive, comma, and so this idea breaks here. This combination is the ideal. Why is this combination ideal? Because you know how to fish and you have the fish as well. Obviously better than just knowing how to fish. Okay. And the author is not comparing here. See, there's a different scenario possible here, right? You have a fish, but you don't know how to fish. In that case, the author is not telling you what is good and what is not good. According to the author, the best possible scenario is when you know how to fish and you have the fish as well. When you know how to fish, but you don't have the fish, or you have the fish and you don't know how to fish, we're not talking about those scenarios. Okay, be a little careful, because here your prejudices will make you understand the passage differently, and it's very important for a good reader to step outside his or her shoes, step into the shoes of the writer, and the writer has left his or her the clues everywhere, the tone, the mood, the opinions, they're all over the place. Okay, so it's up to you to catch them, and you can do that only if you stepped outside your shoes. Okay, you can't think like yourself when you're reading something, because you want to understand the author at the end of it. That's the purpose of reading, to understand the author. Okay, then there is a but, okay, which is a powerful contrast marker, as I keep reminding you. But if the having is the result of waiting around, this is one scenario. For someone to give you a fish, it would be better to know how to do it yourself. So now next part, the author is telling you, hey, now two more scenarios. Okay, if you got a fish, if the having is a result of waiting around for someone to give you a fish, it would be better to know how to do it yourself. So the author is answering that question saying, is it better to know how to fish, or is it better to have a fish from somebody else? The author is saying, if the having is a result of waiting around for someone to give you a fish, it would be better to know how to do it yourself. Okay, so getting a fish by knowing how to fish is more important, according to the author, or more useful or more valuable, according to the author, than having a fish being given by somebody else. So what is the subtle information the author is giving you here? Again, see, you can understand so much about the author himself or herself here, right? So the author is more likely to be the person who wants to do things by himself or herself than, being given things. Not everybody thinks like that, right? But according to the author, that's how it is. So in both cases, scenario A, a person has fish. Scenario B, the person has fish. But in A, you got the fish from your friend, say, and B, you got it yourself. You went for fishing, you're successful, you got the fish. According to the author, scenario B is better than scenario A. So the author is basically very subtly propagating self-dependency. Okay, is it right? Is it wrong? We don't want to judge that. But you understand the author here. Like, for example, there could be people in the world who would say, hey, I would rather have a fish being given to me by somebody else than, or is I saying, hey, any day, my going out and earning $1 million probably is not as good as getting it in gift from, say, some grandmother who always liked me. You understand? Whatever, I shouldn't speak of that, but you understand, you get the drift, right? So, but the author is giving you information here about himself or herself, right? For where the waiting, okay, for here is used as a because. It's very confusing. That's why you should take special note of this particular for. For can be used as because. And it's important for you to understand that, because when for is used as because, it's a conjunction. When for is used normally, okay, for example, Kohli plays for India, it's a preposition, not as, loaded with information as the for in this case. For, where the waiting agent hopes for luck or charity, the agent who knows how to fish can return to the river each morning and each evening. Pause there, one idea done. Throwing a line into the water over and over until she is satisfied with the catch. Okay, the author is saying, if you know how to fish, then you can keep going back till you're happy with the fish. If you don't know how to fish, then you'll have to wait for somebody else. Now, somebody else here is luck or charity. So the author set forward his or her opinion on this. Okay, so it's better to have fish that you've got it yourself than waiting around for somebody else to give it to you. Okay, let's look at the questions. This is question 1. The assumption made in the first para of the passages, remember the first paragraph already, right? It's entirely revolving around one question, which is that is it better to know, or let me just get the exact words, is it better to know or to seek to know? Anyways, so the assumption made in the first part of the passage is that the will to learn is far more valuable than knowledge itself. So here, what are we comparing? We are comparing the will to learn, the attitude to seek knowledge, okay, far more valuable than knowledge itself. Did the author say this? No, the author did not say that. The author said, I don't have enough information. What the author gave you an answer for was the case where you had the knowledge and the will to learn. That was a good situation. But if you had a choice where you either have the attitude but no knowledge, or you had the knowledge but you got it through disinterest and not through diligence, which of those two situations are better? The author says, I don't know, we cannot decide, right? So option A is therefore wrong. Now if you picked option A, it basically means you are being guided by your prejudices. You just make assumptions because you left one very important word here which the author did not define for us, right? Far more valuable. When you see this, you ask this question, did the author define value of the attitude versus value of the knowledge? That way, okay, value was subtly discussed by the author, okay, but in the one case where one has knowledge and one got that knowledge through the will to learn, only in that case we know that it's better. Again, the author used the word better, so we know that this is A is better than B. But between will to learn and knowledge itself, the author did not give a value comparison, okay? So A should be eliminated. Knowledge can be acquired without diligence. Yes, this is true, and this was given to us indirectly, therefore it qualifies to be called an assumption. Knowledge can be acquired if one has the right attitude. Again, the author does not tell you that if you have the attitude, you'll get knowledge. We only discuss a situation where one has knowledge and one acquired it through the right attitude. That situation is better than one has a right attitude. And, just having the right attitude versus having the right attitude and getting the knowledge, that was compared. The author never makes a sweeping statement saying, hey, if you have the right attitude, you'll always get the knowledge. Though that kind of empty promises are not, made by smart thinking people. Anyway, so C can be eliminated. Knowledge cannot be acquired only through the right attitude. This is the opposite of this, if you notice, isn't it? So C is wrong, D is wrong, therefore. The author is not telling you, hey, right attitude, you'll have knowledge. Right attitude is not enough to have the knowledge. We don't know either of them because the author never told you how much knowledge you can acquire or whether you can acquire. It's just comparing what already is. Should be an easy question if your thinking is clear. If you got this wrong, okay, if you didn't get B as the answer, it means your thinking is not, you're just muddling up too many things. You can't even blame the language in this case because the words were very clear. So if you make mistakes in this, the problem is definitely with the way you go about critical reasoning. Okay, so get that sorted out. Let's look at the second question. Which of the following is an assumption made in the second part of the passage? This is a more difficult question than the first one. Which of the following is an assumption made in the second part of the passage? About the fish example, right? If you know how to fish, you don't need luck to catch fish. Did the author make this assumption? If you go back to the paragraph, what does the author say? The waiting agent hopes for luck or charity. The guy who does not, the guy who knows how to fish does not have to wait for luck or charity. Why? Because that person can keep returning to the river each morning, each evening, throwing her line until satisfied with the catch, which means what? Doesn't have to wait for luck or charity, which means what? You don't need luck or charity to get that fish, which means if you know, you'll get the fish at some point. Okay, if you don't know, you'll have to wait for luck or charity. What is the option? What is option is saying? If you know how to fish, you don't need luck to catch fish. Yes, there was that assumption, right? Because if the author is telling you that, hey, if you know how to fish, you don't have to wait for luck or charity, means that I don't need luck to catch the fish. Isn't that's what the author is trying to subtly suggest? But in real life, it's not like that, doesn't it? I mean, you could be really good and you could have a lot of knowledge, and without luck, you don't go too far. But this is why it's important for you to understand critical reasoning. You can judge the author as well only if you have the right, frame of mind and you're trying to understand what you're reading without letting your emotions, make decisions for you either. Anyway, so if you know how to fish, you don't need luck to catch fish. Subtly, this was a message. One can catch fish without knowing how to fish. Now, did the author make this assumption? One can catch fish without knowing how to fish? No, we did not talk about it. One can have fish without knowing how to fish because luck or charity can get you that fish. Okay, that's the difference. So I don't need to worry about this particular option. This can go. One can catch a satisfying haul of fish if one had patience. See, if I had changed this word, and this is why I said this is a tricky question. If I said one can catch a satisfying haul of fish if one had enough patience, okay, then C is an assumption because the author is saying you can keep returning till you have a satisfying, haul of fish. The author says, means what is the assumption? That eventually you will get the amount that you want. That's what the author says, isn't it? So that's the assumption. It's quite likely you may never get what you want, but the author did not talk about the eventuality. Author just said, you keep going, you'll get it, which means the assumption is that eventually you will get a satisfying haul of fish. That's the assumption. So one can catch a satisfying haul of fish if one had enough patience, not the same as one can catch a satisfying haul of fish if one had patience. Okay, because why? In real life, we end up reading C a lot like the other sentence, had enough patience. That's not your fault. Okay, so if you picked C as your answer, you did a really good job. You thought really deep. Only someone who could think deep could pick C as the answer. Otherwise, you'll just end up eliminating it very easily. If you did eliminate it without all this thought, that means you're not doing well, isn't it? Okay, you dodged a bullet, but you should have gone deep into this option. Okay, it was really, really close, like 95% close. Now, what's the difference between one had patience and one had enough patience? Okay. If I say one have patience, the author is just saying, hey, if you have patience, you can catch fish. That becomes the byline. But the passage did never compare patience with catching fish. Passage is talking about knowledge. Okay. The moment I put enough there, had enough patience, the patience is not the byline. As you keep going and show that patience, you will get it eventually. Okay. One can catch a satisfying haul of fish for a patience. The other problematic part of the option C is the big question. It will become closer with one had enough patience. Right, but let's say you are given only the the right answer and this option, very close option. And if I make a statement like this, one can catch a satisfying haul of fish if one had enough patience. Is this statement 100% true as per the passage? Obviously not. Why not? Because the author never says if you have enough patience, you'll get the fish. You need knowledge also. And C does not tell you whether you have knowledge or not. One can catch a satisfying haul of fish if one had the knowledge of how to fish and enough patience. That is the assumption. That is what was the underlying statement according to the author, right? So that part you'll have to be a little careful about. If you don't know how to do something, you need to depend on charity or luck. Okay, this is one more piece of information which the author was subtly passing on to you, right? So if you know how to fish, you don't need luck to catch the fish. Yes. If you don't know how to do something, you need to depend on charity or luck, the other part of it. Now, how do you pick an answer out of A and D if these are close? If you notice, the structure is very similar, isn't it? If you know how to fish, you don't need luck to catch fish. If you don't know how to fish, so just basically look at this way. If you know versus if you don't know, this is how you do an A minus D, and you should be getting into this habit of doing. Then you'll spot the differences very well. Okay, you don't need luck versus you need to depend on charity or luck. The only difference is we have something here versus fishing. Okay, that's the first difference. That should give away the answer to you, because the para was only about fishing. You can't make assumptions about other stuff, right? But let's say I put the word fish here. Okay, if you don't know how to fish, you need to depend on charity or luck. Then what happens? Then A and D become closer. Okay, now the big question, if you know how to fish, you don't need luck to catch fish. Is that the assumption made by the author? Or if you don't know how to fish, you need to depend on charity or luck? The D part will seem true to you, but you can't pick as the answer because the author told you that directly in the passage, isn't it? It said, if you don't know how to fish, you'll have to wait for somebody else to give you, charity or luck. So the author is telling you directly, how is it an assumption? You understand the point? Assumption means it should not be there in the passage. It should not be given to you directly or in synonyms of whatever you understood. It should be something over and above what has been mentioned by the author directly. Okay, so the answer to this particular question, as close as D might sound, the answer is A. Next question, which of the following can be inferred from the passage? What's the difference between inference and assumption? As far as a CAT student is concerned, you don't have to worry really, because your exam or sometimes doesn't make the distinction anyways. If you're a GMAT student, you're worried about inference versus assumption, always remember in GMAT questions are tighter, okay, a lot closer, and they make this distinction. So if question is between inference and assumption, ask yourself a very simple question. Okay, question is, the answer I pick, does it come after the paragraph or is it a part of the paragraph? Like, is it part of the equation, the author's equation? If it's part of the author's equation, then assumption. If it comes after the paragraph, you got to know it extra after you're done reading the paragraph, then it's an inference. Okay, inference is always downstream to assumption. Assumption comes within the paragraph itself, because what's an assumption? It's not your assumption, isn't it? It's the author's assumption. Assumption basically means, what did the author assume and therefore did not tell you, but his or her end conclusion depends on that assumption, like that. Okay, which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Fishing is a skill everyone can acquire. This passage is not just about fishing. Fishing is just an example, so we can just easily eliminate this particular option. knowledge acquired despite disinterest is worthless. Now, this is a very strong statement, isn't it? Extreme statements, generally we do not pick them as the answer, right? So worthless, we did not discuss that. It's absolutely worthless. The author never told you that. The author just said more value to the knowledge that you acquire. Better, use the word better. Knowledge that you have plus you acquired it yourself, better than the process of trying to acquire something. That's all the author discussed. So calling knowledge acquired despite disinterest worthless, no, the author did not insult knowledge like that. The value of knowledge is accentuated by the attitude to seek it. Yes, because the author said if you want to seek it and then you get the knowledge, that's better than just the purpose, which means the knowledge itself, the value of knowledge is accentuated by the attitude, because the author said the attitude is important, right? So again, can I understand C from first paragraph alone? No. Okay. Why can't I understand C from first paragraph alone? Because if you notice, the value of knowledge plus the attitude to acquire that knowledge was not compared with the value of knowledge with disinterest. The author did not compare these two, if you remember. The author compared having knowledge versus the process of trying to acquire the knowledge. Those two were compared. It's very important for you to remember that, okay? So the value of knowledge is accentuated by the attitude to seek it, indirectly tells you or very subtly tells you that knowledge acquired by, you know, the process of trying to acquire it through the right attitude is more important than knowledge acquired without the process of trying to seek it. This was not there in the first paragraph. Only if you put the first paragraph together with the second paragraph, the fish example, there the author says, instead of waiting around for other people to give you fish, which is having the knowledge and waiting for, you know, getting it through disinterest, it's better to go out there yourself and acquire it. So the value of knowledge is accentuated by the attitude to seek it, can be inferred from first and second paragraph put together, not from the first paragraph alone. Okay, it's very confusing, and therefore it's important for you to dig this a little deeper. The thing with critical reasoning is that there are no hard and fast rules, and sometimes the lines are very blurry, and teachers, me included, make mistakes too. Okay, mortals, everybody, and in a split second you understand something and there's some word missing. This happens and happens to everyone. Don't need to be too harsh on yourself, but the point is to just keep fine-tuning it, or keep asking the question, okay, why is it an assumption? Why was it important? Can I really infer it? Did I make any assumptions while trying to pick the inference? It has to be very important to ask these questions, right? If there were a form, that's the reason you will notice in verbal you never get 100% accuracy the way you can assure in quant. Having said that, you still treat or respect verbal the way you respect quant, okay, with the same accuracy. Then their accuracy will go up. If you think that verbal is all in the air and everything is in the air and you can just, you know, decide on the spot, then it won't work. You treat verbal the way you treat quant, as if there is very strict logic, as if there are hard and fast rules, and therefore you'll more likely be watertight in your reasoning. Okay. Anyways, acquiring knowledge should be a function of diligence. Did the author give you this suggestion? No. Should be a function of diligence is very subtly trying to ask you if this is what the author was trying to pass on. Okay, is this the information the author was trying to pass on? Because it didn't tell you directly. Acquiring knowledge should be a function of diligence. Did the author tell me indirectly that, hey, knowledge should always come to you because of diligence? No, because, so D is easy to eliminate as it stands, because the author did not say that if you want to have fish, you better learn how to fish and get it, because there's no point having fish without learning it. Okay, die hungry. The author did not say that.